What's going on, guys? And we are back, and joining me is Jeremy Mellett.
Yep.
Millett. Sorry about that.
No,
man.
you're good.
From Silencer Shop.
Yes, sir.
All right, so for people who don't know, what is Silencer Shop?
Silencer Shop is the largest distributor of silencers in the country.
Okay.
But what we do is we work with customers. We have over 20 different brands, over 190 different silencers for people to choose from. And
But a lot of people didn't realize there were that many silencer choices to choose from.
Yeah. No, and the great thing about us is you think about us like a car dealership that carries all the different manufacturers.
Okay. All right. That's kind of how you guys are?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now with SHOT Show's really not usually politicized in a lot of ways. The NRA show tends to be a little bit more politicized for obvious reasons.
Right.
But a lot of people are talking about the Hearing Protection Act, and for good reason, right?
Yep.
So what do you guys thought process on that?
So that's one of the most that's what comes up every single time we talk to somebody. Where is this bill going, right?
Yeah.
And so Silencer Shop is on the board of the ASA, the American Suppressor Association.
Okay. I bet you a lot of people didn't know that existed either.
Exactly. Which with the help of the NRA has introduced this bill, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously being on the board, we've contributed a lot to get this bill through, right?
Yeah.
And it looks pretty good, but there's a lot of hurdles that I think people don't understand.
Yeah.
And a lot of things that they need to be looking at, But it looks pretty good. I think we might have a shot at it.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially now how I'm seeing the other side kind of play, their hand at the Hearing Protection Act.
Absolutely.
Largely trying to say basically it isn't a health issue.
Exactly.
I can stand here testament to the fact that I have tinnitus. Whether or not that came from shooting, I don't know. But nonetheless, I go out of my way to protect my hearing. I usually double up on my ear protection. And in many ways, a silencer just makes sense to me.
Absolutely. Yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is that even firing one shot without proper hearing protection can permanently damage your hearing.
Yeah.
And, the more you do that, the worse it becomes.
Yeah, I can only imagine. So are you guys doing anything in particular? Because I know with suppressors, silencers, first of all, let's get the vernacular straight away, right? Because, there's a lot of flux about whether or not they're called suppressors or called silencers, and we call them silencers because it sounds more evil, yada, yada, yada. Suppressor or silencers? What was there a right or a wrong?
If you want to go by the legal definition, the legal definition is silencer. That's what the ATF classifies them as. That's what the inventor called them. Yeah. Suppressor is like the politically correct term. In England they call them moderators.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I did not know that.
The slang is calling it a can. So suppressor, can, muffler, silencer, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. So now with that being said, like for people who don't understand, how do suppressors or silencers work? Because I think one of the biggest battles that's going to come from the Hearing Protection Act is getting people educated about suppressors and silencers, because I think a lot of people's idea of them come from the movies.
Exactly.
Right? And we all, well, at least you and I know, and a lot of people here know, that they don't necessarily work that way.
100%.
Yeah.
So, a silencer takes it from that 160 plus decibel range and brings it down under 140 and makes it hearing safe for a peak impulse. So a lot of people are like, hey, wait a second, 140 isn't hearing safe, Well, by OSHA standards, it's not for duration.
Okay.
Yeah, but by peak, it is hearing safe.
Because I think people tend to oversimplify the noise element and just decibels in general, because I have a hard time even understanding it to a degree, how the decibels work. Because, you say 140, you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah, right? But then, over a period of time, for a long period of time, 140 is pretty bad.
Absolutely.
But, 140 for a moment, no damage?
No damage. You want to really keep it under 140.
Gotcha.
But, a 22 unsuppressed is about 140 to 142 for a 22 rifle.
Okay.
So even shooting that unsuppressed can cause hearing damage.
Yeah, because I do know a lot of people who, they don't really do much in the way of ear protection when they're shooting 22s, which I think is a problem. Like,
it is.
Wear ear protection all times. So how would you go about talking to someone who comes to you and says, you know what, why does anybody need a suppressor? Like, okay, I hear it, or you want to make the gun quieter, but why? Why do you need a suppressor?
The real reason is not just for your benefit, but for everybody else's.
Gotcha.
Right? Because, even if you're at a range, people walk on the range all the time not wearing hearing protection. And so then you're ruining other people's hearing by not being a courteous shooter, really, right?
Yeah.
And you say you double up on hearing protection, right? Because you're
Yeah.
trying to save your hearing.
Absolutely.
Well, okay, now you don't have to double up. Now you can shoot with a silencer
So-
and
Just about whatever ear protection.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it get, especially in ears, can
Exactly.
get really annoying after a period of time, especially long durations at the range. So, like with that being said, what are some suppressor silencer facts that a lot of people don't know? Like, what is the culture of suppressors in different countries?
yeah. So they're it's funny because in a lot of countries they're way less regulated than firearms.
Gotcha.
So-
Which is ironic because I'm assuming in some of those countries we actually have more lax gun laws than they do.
Absolutely, 100%. So, like for example, New Zealand, you can go in and buy them over the counter. South Africa, same way.
Really? So I can literally just walk into the store and say I want to buy a suppressor can?
Yeah, exactly, and put it on. For people that do a lot of overseas hunting, this isn't really anything new to them. They're like, oh, I've shot with them before.
Yeah. So from a hunting standpoint, how explain to people how that would be beneficial?
So there's several reasons. Number one, you're not impacting the rest of the wildlife in the area.
Okay.
So if I'm over here shooting at a deer and you're 500 yards away in the opposite direction, my shot isn't going to ruin your hunting. It's not going to ruin your hunting perspectives, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to scare off everything within 2 miles.
Gotcha.
And not only that though is you're not making the game aware. You're not getting them to where they feel really pressured. You're not putting a lot of pressure on the area. So even talking about for non-hunters, if you're hunting an area that's open for everybody, right? Now the game aren't completely scared away from that area. Now the nature observers can still see it. They can still see the animals. The animals aren't skittish and scared. Yeah. And of course, you're helping your hearing because hunters typically don't wear hearing protection.
And that was another point I was going to bring out. I think I heard an argument with somebody who thought he was incredibly clever when he came up with the argument. He was like, well, with suppressors, that means that the hunters won't be aware of each other and they won't be able to hear the shots. First of all, when you hear a shot go off, you in that expanse of space, you don't know where it came from anyway. So it's kind of hard to gauge where to go in that regard. But then also, the sound of a suppressor is very distinctive.
It is.
And I think a lot of people assume that it's just silence.
It's not.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to hear that perspective from people saying, from a safety standpoint, it'd be good for them to not have suppressors. But like you pointed out, though, a lot of hunters don't use hearing protection so that they are more aware.
That's right. Exactly. And so, think about this. Popular hunting calibers, 300 Win Mag, 30-06, 308,
Yeah.
With a silencer, that's still about as loud as a .22.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, it's right there.
Yeah.
It drops it down into the 130s, but it's the high 130s.
Yeah.
So, if you say, oh, it makes it silent, it's like, I can hear a 22 pretty far away. I'm just saying.
I started hearing 22s going off. I'm like, okay, what's going on here, right?
Just lost.
Did I lose my sound?
I just lost sound.
Okay. So I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear.
Yeah. No. So I think that's a good point to point out. Is this notion or this perception that silencers make guns silent, and I guess you can't really blame people who don't know anything at all. You hear silencer, and then I'm watching James Bond movies, and all I'm hearing is pew pew.
Exactly. Hollywood kind of really did us an injustice there, because they made it sound like, I could shoot someone in here and nobody would hear it.
Right?
Yeah, and that is not the way it is at all.
Absolutely.
So, it starts with education, though. Mm-hmm. I think that's what we really need to drive home is the education piece of this, because the more people that are educated,
okay.
The more people that are educated, the better chance we have of getting this bill passed, right?
Awesome. Yep.
But, one quick thing that I want to point out on this, if this bill does pass, the demand for silencers will be unprecedented.
Yeah.
It'll be worse than the 22 scare or the AR scare or anything that we've had in the past. It will be phenomenal. So if you want a silencer, the best time to buy is now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. It was a pleasure. And thank you
so
for
much.
putting out that information out there for a lot of people who didn't know.
Thanks.
All right, thanks
Appreciate it.